Okay, it's August. It's the second day of August, and I know a lot of kids are lamenting, but it is time for a new school year. Students will be heading back to the classrooms, and the question is, what are they going to be walking into? You know, we've seen this growing hostility toward faith in the public school setting. We've seen this increasingly woke, radical, sexualized culture that has eclipsed learning and education. I mean, just about every week there are new examples of this. And in fact, one of the latest examples of this hostility toward Christian education in particular is it comes out of Washington State, where the state attorney general there launching an investigation into a Christian university for refusing to hire faculty and staff who practice sexual behavior that is inconsistent with biblical standards and their statement of faith. He's going after them. Of course, they're countersuing, good for them. But this hostility in the realm of education is intensifying. And as President Biden says, this is the battle for the soul of our nation. And on that, he and I agree. Now, to prepare for the new school year, FRC has created a 30-day prayer guide to help folks pray and encourage folks to pray for America and for our schools. We can't abandon them. We need to be praying. We need to be praying for the teachers, more Christian teachers to go into our schools to be a light in a very dark setting. With me now to talk about this and more is FRC Senior Fellow for Education Studies, Meg Kilgannon. She served in the U.S. Department of Education during the Trump administration. Meg, thanks for joining me. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Great to see you.
Okay, to those who question whether the indoctrination in schools is really as intentional and orchestrated as suggested, can you highlight some of the efforts we're seeing, like the efforts of the Southern Poverty Law Center? We talked about Washington's Attorney General, Bob Ferguson. I mean, there is such an abundance. Let our folks know some of them.
Well, I think that the most obvious way that children are being targeted in schools is with the gender identity message, and then the focus on critical race theory, and just the focus on identity overall, whether it's your racial identity, your sexual identity. They want to divide students and to create a sense of revolutionary discontent, to be perfectly frank about it. I mean, this is part of the cultural revolution that Marxists have adopted, these tactics to foment revolution to achieve their Marxist utopian government. And the fact that our educational institutions have been so completely overcome with this sort of ideology that's why we need all hands on deck at every level of education. We need Christians, people with a biblical worldview, people of faith engaged in the process so that we can have another set of ideas, a better set of ideas, present at the table when decisions are made that affect our children and the students of this country.
Obviously, the first step is awareness and understanding, which I think we've seen a lot of that in the last year and a half as parents have become aware and they've taken active steps. We talk about this frequently. We've got a record number of parents running for school boards. We've got resources available for them at FRC Action as well. But there are so many kids, even though a lot of folks have left the public school system, they're homeschooling or they're in a private education, there's still a lot of kids that are held captive in these government schools that are indoctrinating them with this leftist ideology. And so we need to be praying for them and in fact, this past weekend, weekend before last, I was in Kansas speaking at a couple of churches and ran into some teachers who are Christians, but they're in the public school system. And I was thanking them because I think we need more Christian teachers. And these kids need some hope. And I think these Christian teachers ought to be looking, or we ought to be looking at these Christian teachers as missionaries in a very hostile place.
I totally agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why I really love the resource that we have on the website that is 30 days of prayer for back to school. And I think, when you get to the end of the 30 days, you should just turn right around and start again and pray for schools and for our nation's children continually. There are sections on praying for parents, praying for students, praying for teachers and administrators, and then praying for the overall environment at the school. And there are beautiful biblical references at the end of each of the days to refer you to scripture for further reflection and reading. I mean, this is something not everybody can run for school board. Not everybody can go to a school board meeting, but we all can pray. We can all pray for the nation's schools. And we know that when things seem totally ridiculous and like nothing is ever going to change, that is often when God shows his true glory and power and does something truly miraculous.
You're absolutely right. Prayer changes things. Meg, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tony.